Hey guys, it is the Jackie Jackson, real estate expert, coach, and mentor. And I am so excited for another fantastic episode of the Jackie Jackson Show. Today I'm in a wonderful neighborhood in East Orlando, and I'm actually standing in front of a house that I flipped. So we're taking a walk down memory lane, and I'm going to be explaining to you exactly how I did it, all right? So this lovely house right here is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was kind of like about plus or minus, I think about 2,300 square feet. And I love this house so much because it was my first renovation, all right? So in my first renovation, not my first flip, but my first renovation. And the reason why I love it so much, walk with me. The reason why I love it so much is because I had no idea how to renovate a house by any means. So the way how I was able to overcome that lack of knowledge, lack of experience, is I joint ventured with another investor. So for those of you who are interested in learning how to do a specific strategy in real estate, but you really don't know how to go about getting it done, a great way to get started is to joint venture with someone who knows how to implement that strategy, has worked on that strategy, and has mastered it, all right? So walk with me as I show you the neighborhood. It's pretty nice. So as you can see, there are some really nice houses in this neighborhood. Going all the way down, you have some 2-story, you have some single-story. This one here is a single-story home, and like all of the bedrooms, all of the rooms, everything is on one level. So that was pretty cool. That's what I liked a lot about this property. When I was flipping this one right here, directly across the street, was actually for sale as well too. So one of the things that you should be doing when you go into neighborhoods, you are looking for everything that's for sale. So that one right here, this next house right here, it has a realtor's contact information in the front. So obviously that one is for sale as well too. But the purpose of this show is to talk to you about flipping and renovating. So the strategy that I did was a buy, fix, and sell. All right, so buy, fix, and sell, which is renovation, right? So I purchased a house, I fixed it up, and I put it back on the market so it could be sold as a retail sale, like to a family that planned on living there, all right? So that's much, much different from wholesaling, okay? I wanted to sell this property for its maximum value, right? So I wanted the highest price per square footage when I was complete after renovating it. So the only way for you to get the maximum amount is for you to really do a great job in renovating and being very in tuned to what buyers are really looking for in houses, right? So you want to do great bathrooms and great kitchens, right? Bathrooms and kitchens sell houses, all right? They sell them a lot. That's what people are looking for, great bathrooms and great kitchens, right? So I'll make sure I share that information with you and give you some insight, quick tips on how to do a great renovation and still stay within budget, all right? So that's important. So this house here, I sent the owner a letter, and usually investors, that's how they start out. They send letters, right? They send some kind of marketing message to owners. So who do you send letters to, all right? So the list that I used to send the letter was absentee owners, or people who own properties where it was not their primary residence. And a lot of investors will do absentee owners like in other states, but I actually did absentee owners within my state. So that means that the owner didn't live here, but they lived within the state. All right, they didn't live someplace, you know, really, really far away. They lived someplace that was kind of like accessible. I could really reach out and meet with them face to face. And sometimes I love that list too, because when they call you back inquiring about your letter, you can meet with them personally because they're not really far away, which is a great strategy. So make sure you write that tip down. Write that down. All right, so that's absentee owners in state versus absentee owners out of state. All right, so that was step number one. So after I met with the owner, we talked a little bit. It was a really, really nice lady. This was a property that she had as like a rental property. So she really was a landlord, and she lived not too far away from here, to be honest with you. She had rented this house for like 10 years consecutively before she spoke to me. And she said, hey, you know, I receive letters all the time, but I responded to your letter because it was just one of those times that she just didn't want to rent it anymore. The lease was up from the tenant that she actually had in the house. So it was just great timing. So for you investors out there that is looking for another list, it would probably be like landlords as well, because over time, landlords, they get tired too, right? They get tired of like managing properties. They get tired of dealing with the tenants, and they really just want to cash out. They really just want to cash out. Not that they don't love the house, not that they don't enjoy the cash flow, not that they had bad tenants or anything like that. Sometimes they really just want to cash out. All right, so I encourage you to market to landlords, because sometimes they just really want to cash out. Anyway, so that's what she was. She was a landlord that wanted to cash out. So absentee owners, in-state, out-of-state, could possibly be landlords, or it could possibly be individuals that have become landlords by default. All right, so what do I mean by landlords by default? You can have someone that lived in a home, right? They lived in the home, and then all of a sudden they had to relocate and go someplace else, but the house was their primary residence. They never intended to become landlords in the first place. They just happened to have to move and go someplace else, and now they have this property that they didn't plan on selling or anything like that, so they became like landlords by default, that they rented out. And that's what happened to her. So she actually lived in this house during that period of time, but she decided that she wanted to move because she wanted a house with a pool, and this house didn't have a pool. So that was her reason for moving like 2 blocks over, is that she really just wanted a house with a pool. So she became a landlord by default. She just ended up keeping her house and moving 2 blocks over and loving and enjoying the Florida weather here and the pool. And then, but this house here had a jacuzzi, but it didn't have a pool. So that's how she ended up being a landlord. So she rented it for 10 years and then decided, okay, she's tired of managing it, and now she just really wanted to cash out. So that's how our conversation went. Well, she has a mortgage on this property, actually. So the strategy that I ended up doing, because it was like a retail sale that I was going for, her mortgage on this property, her balance on it was pretty high, and it did not fit the criteria of like a wholesale sale, right? So, you know, wholesale strategy is like one of the most aggressive strategies that investors can do, because it's their cash offer, it's the least amount of money that they're going to offer a seller, and sometimes it just doesn't fit the situation. But it doesn't mean just because you can't wholesale a house that is not a good deal. So you want to make sure that you know multiple different strategies, so you can at least offer additional solutions, so that in the event that your wholesale or your cash offer does not fit the needs of the seller, that you at least have some other strategies that you can offer them to help them make a decision on selling their property. So the strategy that I chose for this particular house was to buy this house subject to the existing mortgage, which was pretty dope. So what do I mean subject to the existing mortgage? So for this property, what I did is I took over the payments. I took over the payments for the mortgage, and I bought the house and left the mortgage in place. All right, so that happens. And that was a great way for me to keep like all of my expenses low and everything like that, and for me to be able to keep the money that I wanted to use for my renovation. I'm under a tree right now, walking in this beautiful neighborhood. So it was an opportunity for me to keep the money that I planned on using for renovation in my pocket while still getting the opportunity to actually control the property. Does that make sense to you guys? So I control the property by purchasing it subject to the existing mortgage, taking over her mortgage payment. So I really didn't have to come up with the money to actually buy the property or anything like that. All I had to do was come up with the money to actually renovate the property. All right. So the money to actually renovate the property, I didn't have that either. Just FYI. So what I did do is I purchased the property subject to the existing mortgage, and basically the equity that I was supposed to give to the owner for the purchase of her property, right? I actually negotiated a second mortgage, right? So a second mortgage, which is the owner of the lien holder for that second mortgage, right? So the lien holder for the second mortgage was actually the owner. So I negotiated a second mortgage, which was pretty dope. And I put a mortgage on there for, I think it was like 90 days, right? It was like a 90-day mortgage, because all I did was just really calculate the amount of time needed for me to renovate the property and then like put it on the market for a sale, right? And the way how I calculated the amount of days and time that I needed for that mortgage is I looked at the days on the market. I look at the days on the market for what houses that were actually selling in that neighborhood. So I knew exactly how long on average it would take me to sell this property. So that's what I did. All right. So I came up with the terms based off of the days on the market, how long it would take me to renovate the property and market it and put it back on the market. All right. So that's kind of like how it was. And actually, you know what, to think of it, I don't think it wasn't 90 days. It was 6 months. All right. So yes, that's what it was. It was 6 months. So 6 months. I did a 6-month mortgage, with the owner. And I said, okay, when I finish selling this house, I have to pay you this amount, right? So that was her profit. And that 6 months mortgage was negotiated for 6 terms, 6 months in the term, and I had 0 payments with her. So I negotiated her putting a 6-month second mortgage on her property with 0% interest with no payments for 6 months. Isn't that awesome? That's so awesome. So you'd be like, well, why in the world would anybody do that? Why would she do that? Well, you know what? The risk for her was pretty low. I mean, think about it. I was paying her mortgage for her, right? I purchased a house subject to, she no longer had a mortgage payment at all right? I was making her mortgage payment for her. Plus, she now had a new lien on her property that stated that I couldn't sell her house even if I wanted to. I couldn't sell her house without her being paid, right? So she was guaranteed to get her money. And then the worst case scenario that she would experience is that she would get back a house that was in better condition than she gave it to me. Because I'm spending all my money. I'm the one that's spending all the money, taking all the risk, and actually renovating her property, right? So she was going to get back a really, really nice house, right? Because my objective is to market this property to a retail buyer. So I'm going in, all right? I'm doing granite. I'm doing all kinds of upgrades in the property, and I'm going to make it so beautiful, so sexy that everybody wants to love it and everybody's going to buy it, right? Everybody's really, really going to want to buy it. So that's pretty much what happened. So the next step that I did was I actually negotiated with a private lender. So my private lender was like, wait a minute, Jackie, if there's already a first mortgage on this property, okay, where am I going to go? And then you put a second mortgage on the property again with the owner. How am I going to secure my interest in this property and lend you the money and be sure that you're going to give me my money back? I was like, yeah, that's a real concern, isn't it? But I needed to borrow the money for the renovation. So how did I manage to secure the interest of the private lender who loaned me the money to do the renovation? All right, so that's very creative in itself as well too. So I'll tell you how that went. So with that lender, what I did is an option. All right, so I gave that lender an option to buy the property at a specific amount, right? So that's how he was able to secure his interest. He had the option to buy the property and to buy it back and to take it back from me in the event that I defaulted, which I wasn't planning on it because there was just too much money in this deal for me to do that. So so my lender really wasn't able to put a lien on the property in the traditional sense, like how a mortgage company would have a lien on the property. So I had to give him an option. All right, and then and that's how he was able to provide me with the funds to renovate. So just a quick recap. So I'm in a neighborhood right now that I flipped a house in, and I am going to show you that house right now. I'm in East Orlando. It's a beautiful retail sale that I flipped, and it was amazing. It was a great opportunity for me to learn how to renovate houses and do the buy, fix, and sell strategy, right? So a lot of you out there want to learn how to renovate properties, and you're like, man, I don't qualify for bank financing. I don't have the credit for bank financing. I don't have the money to fix up houses. I don't have any of that, Jackie. What am I going to do? But I want to flip houses. All right, so don't even worry about any of those things. If you have a really good deal, then you'll be able to come up with the creative strategies to get that deal done. And that's what I did. So at the time, I didn't have much credit, and I wasn't really trying to use my credit in that way where I would take on the risk of actually personally purchasing this property, whether it was in my own name or my business entity name or anything like that. I wasn't trying to do a hard money lender. I didn't want to do any of those things. I had already had experiences where I was personally liable for real estate loans, expenses, and that's the reason why I am an advocate for not borrowing money. All right, so I prefer to use the strategies, the creative real estate strategies, where you don't have to borrow somebody's money in order to take possession or take control of the property. So this is the house right here that I renovated. There it is. So somebody's loving and living in it right now. I think the lady who purchased it, really beautiful lady, and she had like one son. So that's who, some really awesome family. So the recap is the person that I actually purchased it from was an in-state absentee owner, which she was a landlord. She was a tired landlord. And then what else? She had rented it for over 10 years, right? So she became a landlord by default. She wanted a bigger house with a pool, and basically that's the only reason why she moved. She wasn't in any financial distress or anything like that. She was just tired of being a landlord. She wanted to retire from the biz. Let's see. So I negotiated with her a subject to, which is taking over her mortgage payments. And my intent in doing that was only to take over her mortgage payments during the period of time that I was renovating that property, right? So I used the existing financing that was already in place. I didn't need to go and get another loan or anything like that. I just continued to pay her mortgage payment because her mortgage payment was pretty low and her rate was like exceptional. So why pay that off? That's good money. And then what I said to her, I says, okay, I am going to renovate this house. I'm going to put in the upgrades, because pretty much it was like builder's grade. It wasn't really like in a bad condition or anything like that. It was just in a rent condition. And those of you who rent properties, you kind of know what I'm talking about. It's livable, it's nice because it's a rent, but it's basic, right? It's not really like upgraded luxury HGTV style like what you'd see on TV. So it didn't have any granite. It didn't have like, 42-inch cabinets. It didn't have any of those things, right? So I knew if I wanted to get maximum retail, I had to upgrade, right? So the upgrades for this property wasn't going to really be that hard since all of the basic bones and structure was already in place. So I knew that this would be a great renovation here. Now, I did not know how to renovate, and I didn't have any systems in place to renovate. At that time, I was only wholesaling and like doing options, lease options and stuff like that. So I really wasn't familiar with all of the different nuances required in order to actually do a great renovation. I went out and I sought after and I seeked out a really great renovator, and that's her strategy. One of my really good friends, and I asked her, I said, hey, I got this really cool deal that I negotiated. I took over the mortgage. I offered the seller a second mortgage for 6 months at 0% with 0 payment. And all I needed somebody to do a joint venture to teach me how to renovate properties. And then, you know, I'll give you a percentage of the net proceeds. And she was like, bet. Bet. For real. All right. So she was like, okay, Jackie, let's do it. So it's renovation time, and I had a fabulous joint venture partner. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with any one strategy, I encourage you to find someone who knows exactly what they're doing. All right. So I joint ventured with another investor that their main strategy is buy, fix, and sell. And what they showed me is priceless. What I learned is priceless. I learned their systems, how they manage, how they write their scopes of work with their contractors and remodelers. I understood how they did their pricing for actual what you call like materials, like the floors, the paint, the fixtures, everything. I learned all of it. We even changed the roof on this property, which is important. So that also contributed to the high dollar value, because if you're buying a new house or you're buying a house that's recently renovated, you want to make sure that all of the expensive stuff for this house is already done, because you don't want to be stuck with that bill after you have purchased the house to renovate it, right? So we renovated the roof, replaced the shingles on the roof, and gave it new life. We painted the exterior of the property and painted it with water repellent paint, like sealed it and everything. We sealed all the cracks in it. We did everything that you could probably think of on the exterior. We did new landscaping on this property for the outside for curb appeal. And on the inside, what we did is we ripped out all the carpet. We replaced it with new tile. And we put in new cabinets, new kitchen cabinets, both in the kitchen as well as in the bathroom. So that's uppers and lowers. We also did granite countertops. Now, let me tell you a little bit about upgraded countertops. So if you're putting upgraded countertops in your renovation, it's normally reserved for a property that has a value of like $200,000 or higher. You would put in granite, especially for our market in Central Florida. So if you're buying a house or renovating a house and the end value after you renovate it is only going to be below $200,000, then you probably won't put any granite in it. You may put in another type of surface that looks like granite, but it's not actually granite. Does that make sense? Because the dollar value of that property doesn't warrant you putting granite. Now, don't get me wrong. If you had a great deal on some granite and it was really cheap, why not, right? But it really is not going to make that house worth any more per se. If it's a house that's worth, you know, under a certain threshold, it's just going to make it like more, I don't know, like desirable value, but it's not going to give you more cash value, if that makes any sense. All right. So I learned that strategy too from my joint venture partner. So I learned how to do that. I learned how one of the most interesting ways of renovating a property is to buy products and materials in bulk. All right. So if you're going to get a good deal on tile, buy that tile and then use it for your project, and then use that same tile for your next project. If you're going to get a good deal on paint, buy that paint color, and then that's the same paint color that you are going to use on all your other projects, especially if you have a system. So that's the reason why I wanted to work with someone else who can show me all of these systems and these best practices. And it absolutely worked. Okay, she gave me a list of the types of fixtures that she buy, and it was, oh, by the way, I love shopping. So shopping for house accessories and shopping for like fixtures and colors and paints and stuff like that, that was totally up my alley, all right? So I really enjoyed the shopping part of it. But you were shopping with a purpose, and it was intentional, and you had a budget, and you definitely didn't go over that budget, all right? Unless there was like a specific anomaly or something like that. You also have a schedule with your contractors, and you know exactly what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and you have a schedule of how you release your payments to them. How many of you out there have had trouble with your contractors? You've given them money up front and they haven't completed the work that you require them to do. That's why you have to have a scope of work, which also identifies the payment schedule. All right, you do this first and then I pay you after you've done this and I've checked it out, right? So that's how that goes. That's how you keep your contractor from skipping out on you and not coming back, right? You have all these projects that have been delayed because the contractor is off on another project someplace else, and they are neglecting your project, your house, and you're on a timeline. You have holding costs maybe, you have all these expenses maybe that are wrapped up in this deal, and your, you know, project manager, general manager, or whoever, or general contractor is nowhere to be found at all, right? So you want to make sure that you are clear on your objective and your end state when you contract with a contractor or a remodeler. Fair enough? But there is huge profit in renovating houses. The key to having a successful renovation is to get the property with the least amount of out-of-pocket expense. So to control the property or purchase the property with the least amount of out-of-pocket expense. And the way how I did that on this property was not a wholesale deal, which is what most people would think. I actually took over the mortgage payment and then negotiated a second mortgage, which was the amount of money, the profit that I was going to share with that owner in a second mortgage. And I gave it to her for a short period of time. And I told her, I was like, hey, the worst thing that can happen is that you get back a house that's absolutely fabulous. She loved that. She came by the job site like almost like once a week to see what kind of renovations and sexiness we were doing with the property. So she was totally excited to see her house be upgraded, because she didn't want to upgrade it, nor did she want to, you know, put that amount of effort or energy or expense, investment into the property. So she was glad to see somebody else prepare this house, love on it, and bring it up to a standard that retail buyers would absolutely love. So it came to D-Day, which was listing day, put the house on the market. And I put the house on the market based off of a flat fee listing. So I controlled the listing for this property, which is absolutely amazing. That's another strategy in itself. So a flat fee listing, and I set the commission for that property, and then I began to market it. I went out and I created a choose your neighbor program, all right? So I invited everybody in the neighborhood. I put stickers and sticky notes on everybody's door in the entire neighborhood and the neighborhood across the street. I did so many things with this one. The sign in the yard, we had a party, all of that cool stuff. So it was really a creative. I actually did my round robin auction strategy, which is an exceptional exit strategy that can be employed and done by both realtors as well as investors, all right? And I was able to get over 100 people at the showing for this property all in one house. It was such a magical scene that so many people came out. They thought it was a party that was happening in the house, and I had a DJ, balloons, I had free giveaways, I had all of these exciting, wonderful things that was happening, and the house sold like in minutes, right? Who doesn't want that? I had all the buyers, everybody in the house at the same time, and they were all looking at each other, wondering who's gonna get this fabulous house, and they were all bidding. I had one guy that says, I have 50,000, I have 100,000, I have this amount of money, I have this money. They all wanted to put money down right there on the spot. Why? Because the marketing was so good. And that was a great day. So we signed a contract, right? We signed with a great buyer, the lady with the kid, with the son, and it was a great day, right? So I shared profit with my joint venture partner. I paid off the private lender who loaned us the money for the renovation, paid off the owner, because I owed her some money too, right? I owed her money from her mortgage that she agreed to give me to hold her equity until I was able to pay her off when the house sold. And then lastly, I paid off the first lien holder, the first mortgage holder, which was the original mortgage holder that the original owner had on the property, because I purchased it subject to the existing mortgage. All right. So if you want to learn more about these strategies, no problem. You can always set a strategy session with me at thejackyjackson.com. So that is T-H-E, Jackie, J-A-C-K-I-E, Jackson, if you're nasty, Jackson.com, and set up your strategy session with me, and I'll be happy to share and teach you all of these creative strategies so that you can be the best real estate investor you can be.